and eating from the trash can all the time. The name of this trash can is ideology.
The Brothers Grimm are responsible for the theory of lingual drift, which states that over time, the way that people speak causes the language to change. It's sort of weird to have this conversation because I kind of feel like nobody should have needed to say that. It's another one of these things in theory where it's like, no shit, really? But if you don't take it on board, then there's a lot of weird things that it turns out people take for granted about the world. And language is one of those things that people have the hardest time with because they don't think, as Wittgenstein showed us, that words represent something outside of the real world so that we communicate about things referentially. They assume, in many ways, that the sign is the object. I don't even understand why I have to explain to them that that's not true. Because it just seems so fundamentally elementary to the world to me. The first thing we have to understand is that language is socially constructed. What that means is that people sort of agree more or less on what things tend to be, and communication is based on that. But at the same time, look at what happens when somebody decides what something means for themselves in a way that doesn't work with established law, history, the way that most people think about it, or worse, as is generally the case in America today, that the way that people tend to think about something is other than its historical precedences, which include the laws that those people are living under. Then you have a serious issue. This is one of the reasons why everyday social science has given itself over almost completely to the definitions of certain words, which are important in American history. Because in order to explain what neoliberalism is eventually, I have to be dealing with an audience I can assume knows what things like enlightenment mean. And they don't at all. And a lot of that is deliberate and is the outcome of culture war and politics, which is something I'm going to have to tackle very soon here. I was having a discussion with another streamer, Rurik2, about this phenomenon, about the way that words change over time and about how meaning is socially constructed. But obviously, if a person decides that something has a different meaning than judges have established with precedents in law, there are going to be consequences for that person. Whether they think that they, as an individual, have the right to believe that the word is defined how they choose to define it or not. And there are likewise consequences in other places and in other ways. Those words have a cultural understanding and a weight behind them that is the mass of the social construction itself. And you have to deal with it. That's inescapable. So we look at what I just did in the video, Where Am I and Why Is It Racist? You can go back and watch that. There should be a tag to do that. I am not going to guarantee I remember. A big part of doing this is that there's not a lot of work that goes into them. That's why I can make so many of them so quickly. And why I'm not going to cite the Brothers Grimm. If we're in a situation where I have to cite the Brothers fucking Grimm, you can just kiss my ass. Anyway, so in that one, I talk about a lot of things that have to do with what people chosen to believe or what in their bottlenecked area of the world the word socialism means, the word education means. They don't mean what the Lieutenant Governor of Idaho thinks they mean at all. But she chooses to interpret them in a certain way that is very popular among the population here. And that is something that we have to deal with as a people. Because, as is generally the case, both of these mutually exclusive things that seem to be contradictory are true. And that's how humans work. Humans are paradoxical. Everything about humans is paradoxical. I'm going to do a whole video about that at some point. I don't know when or how, but that'll be a thing, I'm sure, for one of these fucking shows that I pointlessly do because nobody watches, but I digress. How do you live in a universe like this? And as usual, my answer is going to be that you have to accept that you're eating from the trash can, because there are going to be times that you're using a word in some way that is unfamiliar to other people for one reason or another. I'm making a bunch of these because a lot of people are wrong about what most of these words mean. But for them, in their society, in their immediate circles socially, if they were to try to use the word the way that I use it, they'd be as frustrated as I am. So on a practical level, we also have to accept that the Brothers Grimm are correct. Even though, if we take for granted that the way that the Brothers Grimm have said that means that no words have any meaning except for the socially constructed ones, we're going to fucking jail. That's an extreme, but it's the best example. It's among the most stark. Law 2 is historically contingent. I don't thank people for their time at the end of this one, do I? What do I do at the end of Zizeks Trashcan? I don't know. Maybe this is just over.